guys, my name is Colette, and within this video I'm going to explain what economic growth is. Economic growth can link to all kinds of things, such as why prices rise quicker than salaries, it can increase employment, and it can explain why some countries are richer than others. So what is economic growth? Economic growth is where a country is producing more goods and services than the year before. So how is economic growth measured? It is measured by something called GDP, which is gross domestic product. So this is the overall value of all the goods and services produced within the economy. So if there are 50 goods, then the value of those goods all added together is GDP. So GDP is measured normally by percentage, and it shows us how quickly the economy is growing or shrinking. However, we have two types of GDP. We have real GDP and nominal GDP. Nominal GDP tells us the total number value of goods and services, whereas real GDP tells us the total amount of goods and services, so the total number that has been produced. So let's break this down a little bit more. Think of the economy as a bakery. Last year it made 300 loaves of bread, and this year it made 800. So there's been an increase of 500 loaves of bread which have been able to be made. If the prices increased but all of the production stayed the same, then it would just be real GDP which would grow. However, if the prices increase, then it would be nominal GDP which would grow as well, because the value of the bread is now worth more. To make it a bit more confusing, we also have GDP and we have GDP per capita. So as I said, GDP is basically the total value of all the goods and services, whereas GDP per capita is basically the total GDP divided by each member of society. So to work it out, it is basically total GDP divided by the population, and this gives us the average GDP per person. So why is economic growth good for the economy? The first reason is that businesses will earn more money and they can make more profits. This is because they're obviously producing more so they can sell more. All of these profits can then go to the workers so they can increase salaries and increase the amount of income that individuals get. These incomes and profits will also be taxed, so governments will be able to spend more money on education, healthcare, schools, environment, whatever they want to spend it on, so it will all increase the benefits of society. So this so far is just all theory, so let's actually give you a real life example to help explain it even better. So South Korea. In the 1960s, this was a very poor country. Individuals' income was very similar to very low nations' countries. After the Korean War, loads of infrastructure and buildings were all destroyed, so South Korea had to rely heavily on aid. With this money, the government invested heavily in universities to try and create more skilled workers, by also investing heavily in manufacturing like steel, shipwork, and a lot of other different sectors. South Korea then created an export-led growth strategy. So this basically means that they produce all their goods and services to then export and give to other countries rather than selling it domestically. So today it's home to companies such as Samsung, and the living standards are drastically higher than they were before. This is because as productivity rose, wages then increased, meaning that the economy started to reboost and grow, leading to all of the factors which increase economic growth, to then finally have the higher income compared to what it used to be in the 1960s. So how does economic growth happen? There are four main sources which affect this, and the first being an increase in labour. This reason is pretty simple, but basically if you're working longer and if more people are working, then you can produce more goods and services, so the production increases. The next is that there are better machinery and capital, so production can happen quicker, so again you are producing more goods and services in a shorter period of time. Again, linking to faster machinery, there is also more technology around, so computers are faster, machinery is faster, and you don't actually need to hire as many workers and they can produce more, so again economic growth is increasing. We also have education and skills, so human capital. When people's skills increase, they are more effective, they're more efficient, and they can just produce quicker. And they also find smarter ways to produce things. So again, all increasing the production process, increasing economic growth. But there can also be disadvantages for economic growth, and the first being environmental impacts is a massive one. There can also be higher inequality, there can be lower incomes, there can be inflation, and if you're unsure what I mean by that, go check out a previous video and it will be on there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped and I hope you learned something. Bye!